I am going to figure out how to mute everyone before we start. All right, how's that? A little less background noise? All right, great. Thank you all so much for being here. We're still, right now, Marie is letting more folks into the meeting. This is a huge crowd. That's so exciting. Thank you all so much for being here. And I will start. I think we've just got a couple more folks and then I'll get started. And we'll have some exciting, I'm sure, very smooth technical. Everything will work like a dream. It'll be great. So just for later, you can see down at the bottom of your screen that there's a little speech bubble. And I'm actually going to put a starting chat there. Which I couldn't see to type, so I'm sure that it will work. So that folks will be able to leave us a chat in there, leave us a question for later in the presentation. All right, I think we've got almost everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and start and say welcome. I'm Jenny Stedman, Aurora's Executive Director, and welcome to Aurora's first virtual event. I want to be sure and thank Marie McNamara, our program coordinator extraordinaire. She has really gone above and beyond to help work out all of the exciting new world of technology that this has taken to figure out. So thank you so much, Marie. I'm sure that everyone is feeling more than a little overwhelmed by all the news and the accounts of suffering and hardship that we're hearing every day. But I have to say, thinking about this Women's Giving Circle has really inspired me and giving me hope in moments when I'm feeling the lowest. I think about you and how you've stepped up to meet the need. You've donated and you've come here to listen today. And I'm so inspired about how you answer suffering with empathy and compassion and generosity. Thank you so much for lighting the way for women and girls. Aurora's Women's Giving Circle is an extraordinary response to the COVID-19 crisis. In just a few short weeks, we've raised $14,000 and counting. Working with members of our Giving Circle Steering Committee, thank you to those amazing folks, we've made a significant change to our usual format because when the crisis hit, we knew that women and girls would be the most vulnerable. We knew that Aurora's donors and supporters would want to step up and help. We knew that Aurora could link you with ways to make a difference and add value through our research and community convening. None of your donations to the Giving Circle will support Aurora's operations. 100% of those funds are going directly out into the community. As we will hear, there are extreme needs for the basics that women and girls require to survive, much less thrive. The organizations speaking today provide vital services, but even more important, they are trusted by the women in our community. By supporting these organizations, we can get resources where they need to go, and we will be awarding funds to all of the organizations today. Aurora has been gathering data on the impact of COVID-19 on women and girls and advocating for more and better research that is broken down by gender and race. Before the crisis, 30% of women were already living in poverty in Hartford, and 67% of low-wage jobs across the state were held by women. Nationally, 85% of home health and personal care aides are women, with 59% being women of color. Women are going to bear the brunt of the economic, educational, health, and social impacts of this crisis. I was recently speaking to a young woman who's a student in one of our college success programs. Her story shows both the immediate and the long-term effects women are going to experience. Her mother has been laid off from her job as a bus driver, but she was confident she could continue to support her family with her job as a pizza restaurant manager because her boss told her he would be sure his employees had access to food, right? So we're that close. She's that on the edge. She just got her acceptance to her dream four-year college, but she's unsure she'll be able to go because she doesn't know about the financial aid and she knows she'll have to stay and take care of her family. We've only scratched the surface of the ways that COVID-19 is going to impact women's economic security and their mobility. Aurora was founded 20 years ago to shine a light on the needs of women and girls in our community. Of the $85 billion in charitable giving that happens nationwide, the latest research finds that 1.6%, you heard me right, it's only 1.6%, less than 2% of it goes to organizations that are specifically serving women and girls. What we know is that dollars and resources that go to women are invested by those women back into their families and their communities. If we want to have an impact, we need to invest our resources in women and girls. Aurora has adopted 3 key strategies to advance women and girls in our region. We do strategic grant making designed to promote educational opportunity and economic mobility. We provide research on the obstacles and opportunities for women and girls in our community, and we follow that up by bringing the community together to build collaborative solutions. And finally, educational opportunities about how to promote philanthropy that focuses on women and girls, which is exactly what this Giving Circle is designed to do. We will ask you in the coming weeks for your help to support Aurora and help us continue our advocacy for women and girls. But for today, we're focused on the women and girls who need all of us. We'll now show some short videos provided by our amazing panel. They're only 5 minutes each, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask them questions live afterward. All right, so here comes the exciting technical moment, ladies. I feel like there should be a drum roll if I get this right. Okay, here we go. Okay. And nope. All right, I'm gonna try one more time. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie McNamara. I'm the program coordinator at the Aurora Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're going to be really impressed with the speakers and what they've been doing over the past 2 months to fight COVID-19 and the effects that it has on the most vulnerable people in our population here. I've really gotten a lot of enjoyment out of meeting all of these people. I know you will too. And throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat on the side of your screen and you can ask questions. I will be keeping track of it, and at the end of it, I will we'll open it up to a live Q&A, and you'll be able to get your questions answered, and we'll talk further about all the great things that are happening. So I'm really honored to be a part of this, and I hope to see you all in person someday soon. Thanks so much. Our first speaker today is Yvette Young, Associate Vice President for Programs and Advocacy at the Village for Families and Children. In this capacity, she takes an even greater role in advocacy and public education about issues affecting children and families a role she has successfully honed as the project director for the Human Anti-Trafficking Response Team. From prevention to crisis, the village does whatever it takes to help children, adults, and families transform their lives and achieve real and meaningful change. The village has been serving children and families for over 200 years. Today, they are the most respected child and family service organizations in the state, helping vulnerable children and families at all levels of need, from children who have severe emotional or mental health problems to those who need support and guidance to stay on a successful path.
Hello, my name is Yvette Young, and I wanted to share with you some information on the Village for Families and Children and our Child First program at the Village for Families and Children today. The Village is a nonprofit behavioral health organization that has been providing services for families and children for over 200 years. Our Child First program is a program that provides services to families who are having difficulties. The service provides intervention and strategies that helps parents to work closely with their children to provide healing and to build strong relationships after dealing with toxic stress and trauma. The reality is, with this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of our families, a lot of children are existing in isolation, and as a result of that, are being exposed to abuse and exploitation. In our Child First program, what we have seen, because we have been able to continue to provide services to our families, is that a lot of the caretakers, which are predominantly women, are experiencing domestic violence in the home. We have families or mothers who are unemployed or do not have the means or resources to meet their basic needs, to pay for rent, to pay for utilities, etc. We have mothers who are making the decision to not continue to go to school because the resources are not there, or because they do not have the services they need, such as internet, to be able to access classes and to do their coursework. So our families are definitely struggling during this COVID-19 experience, and the fact that they've already been dealing with toxic stress and trauma in the household. COVID-19 has added additional stress and layers of trauma for these families. So the need is great. We are continuing to provide services to the best of our ability. We want to ensure the safety and well-being of the children that are in these homes, as well as the safety and well-being for those mothers who are dealing with domestic violence issues. Some of the needs that are there for this family, where we think this foundation can support us, is really around those basic needs, is being able to provide resources to families so that they can stay in housing or transition out of shelters into housing, to help our families or our mothers be able to continue to go to school, to have the resources they need to continue to educate their children, to deal with childcare issues as they present themselves, to pay for utilities, to pay for food, so that they can take care of their children. It is critically important that these basic needs are met so that these families can continue to do the work they need to preserve, to build, to repair the relationship issues that are going on, for them to be able to be present for their children and continue to work on the issues to heal the trauma that the family has experienced. So if we are able to receive funding, that is how we would use the funding to help support our families during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Next, we're going to hear from Mary Jane Foster, President and CEO of the Interval House. The Interval House is dedicated to ending domestic violence and providing services that will prevent and break the cycle of family and intimate partner abuse. They strive to reach all persons at risk and bring about social change.
Hi there, and thank you for inviting me. I am Mary Jane Foster, president of Interval House. Interval House is a 43-year-old domestic violence agency. We operate in Hartford and the surrounding 23 towns, so we're the largest agency in the state. In any given year, we serve somewhere between 3,500 and 5,000 victims directly, and reach between 12 and 15,000 in community education. And we have crisis counseling. We have hotlines that run 24/7. We have a safe house. We have advocates in the courts that work with victims and help them navigate. And then again, community education. We were, like everybody else in the world, totally unprepared for how this would upend us. At the time that everyone quarantined, our safe house was full. We had gotten ahead of the curve in terms of cleaning and disinfecting, so we felt okay, and we had supplies, but we just were not prepared for the need of victims who were not necessarily residents in the house. And so we have been working to assure that they all have safe housing, that they are stable in that housing. The last thing we want to have happen is to have a victim go back to her. In this case, it's all women that we've been working with, her abuser, because she can't make the rent, or she can't leave because she doesn't have a security deposit. So we've seen a lot of that. I'll tell you one story that it's kind of complicated, but they're all complicated, and it kind of tells you all of the things that we deal with. So a woman had left her abuser. She'd found safe and affordable housing for herself and her kids. He found her. She caught him twice trying to break in. The second time he was arrested again. There was already an outstanding charge. And when he was brought back to the court, he announced to the court that he believed he was infected with COVID-19. So needless to say, the court sort of scattered. She was terrified, as were the kids. Not that they'd had really close contact, but that he'd been there. So they weren't safe on any level. And she reached back out to us. She was able to find her own affordable and safe housing, but didn't have the security deposit. And then, in the midst of all of this, she lost her part-time job, which was the glue, the last bit of glue that held the family together without the abuser. So we helped her with the security deposit, and then we helped her with gift cards. And gift cards to a Walmart or a Target or one of those stores allows victims to buy whatever they most need. So we have been doing that for food assistance and whatever other supplies. So that's one story. By the way, she is stabilized, and she and the kids are safe and they're healthy. So that's the most important thing. We also enrolled her in the Secretary of State's Address Confidentiality Program. So hopefully this time around, he cannot find her. We've seen a lot of that, and we have been working to stabilize victims and survivors, not only with security deposits, but sometimes utility bills. Again, food insecurity for them is like it is for so many, and there is a lot of that. We just purchased $1,400 worth of gift cards last Monday to meet the needs. We were able to relocate 3 families out of our safe house and find them affordable housing, and that was a security deposit and rent. So in some ways that might be predictable, but stabilizing them wasn't. So our greatest need is for those funds that will help us stabilize victims and their families. It's about rent, it's about utilities, it's about food. Those are the things that make the difference between safe and going back to an abuser, or safe and engaging in a behavior that might give away your location or your safety. So we've been incredibly fortunate that everyone is healthy, everyone is safe. But we know because of research in times of crisis that domestic violence spikes. In Hartford, the cases to the Hartford Police Department have gone up 20%. They've reassigned 4 officers, which I'm incredibly grateful for, to meet those calls so that we are with victims as quickly and as responsively as we can be. So the need is greater, and it's greater in ways that we wouldn't have imagined. And I really appreciate your consideration of Interval House with your giving circle. It means the world for us just to be thought of. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane. Michelle Murphy is the Executive Director of the Malta House of Care Mobile Medical Clinic, a 14-year-old independent nonprofit that provides comprehensive, compassionate, free primary health care to uninsured adults in Greater Hartford in a big white van that visits 4 challenged neighborhoods on a fixed weekly schedule. Funded completely by philanthropy, Malta relies on private donations and a core of about 60 medical volunteers who complement the care provided by its 12-member paid staff.
For this year and next year, ironically enough, at the beginning of 2020, we were poised to grow exponentially. We were planning to grow deliberately rather than simply in response to the demand. And therefore, we were planning to add new sites to our repertoire, as well as expand the number of hours at each of the sites where we already exist. We were, in fact, looking for about 19% growth of inpatient visits this year and an additional 20% next year. And that was before the coronavirus. Once the impact of the virus became clear to us, mid-March, end of March, we realized quickly that we were going to have to pivot because we to be sure we served as educators to our patients, reinforcing the directives they were hearing from the government and from health officials that the safest way the best way to stay healthy was to stay home. And so we didn't want to encourage patients to come to our clinic sites and risk inadvertent exposure to coronavirus. And yet we wanted to be there for them, knowing that we were their doctor, their primary care physician, to whom they would turn if they were worried about the virus or any of their other health conditions. And so beginning on April 6th, for the first time ever, we began offering primary care only from our office, our administrative office on Woodland Street. And we used the safest means we have, which is technology. We began providing care, as most doctors did in the month of April, at least, by phone. We communicated our phone number to our patients via Facebook and our website, and we spaced our nurses and providers out safely in our office so we could continue to provide care and answer the questions of our patients. A lot about the virus, but certainly about other conditions as well. Furthermore, we wanted to make sure our patients continue to receive the medications that they rely on for those chronic conditions. And so in the month of April, a typical month for Malta, when we were in the neighborhoods, we are providing about 550 or so, 600 patient visits a month, sometimes much more than that, but that's an average. In the month of April, working only from our office, we provided 370 patient visits, about 200 of which were by phone. And we considered that to be being there for our patients, encouraging them, supporting them, but keeping them as safe as we could. The people who came to our office were coming for their medication refills or for urgent matters that really couldn't be addressed over the phone. True to form, 2/3 of the people who came to us for care in the month of April were women. And we know anecdotally, and we know from studying our patient data that our patients, our female patients, are like a lot of women. They are working, they are caring for their children, they are often caring for their parents, and they are trying to care for their own health as well. And so they did in April. They called us, they came if they had to, but they continued to seek healthcare from the place that they had come to rely on for these many years. Now we're starting to get back into the community. We are cautiously reopening. In fact, just this week, we started to add hours to our, back into the neighborhoods, and we're starting to add service hours in the neighborhoods to our repertoire. We are hopeful, depending on how it goes, we're hopeful of adding more hours bit by bit as the weeks go on, because going back to the way we were founded, we know that our patients, we want to bring care to our patients in the places where they live and work. We want to be sure we do it safely. We want to reassure them that we haven't disappeared. We may not be at that church that they're familiar with, but we haven't disappeared altogether. And it's important to us that we return to those neighborhoods, as I said, where our patients have become familiar to us. Looking ahead, we are ironically optimistic that a lesson we took from coronavirus thus far is that perhaps going forward, we may be able to provide care in tandem, that the effort we went through to learn and provide care by telephone may turn out to be a way that we end care altogether. Going forward, and we don't know this yet, we're finding our way day by day, but we may well be able to provide both types of care, telephone care, telehealth, as well as in-person care at our clinic sites. In sum, I wish to thank again the Aurora Foundation for inviting us to be part of this important conference. And I wish to thank all of you for your support of Malta House of Care's mission and that of the other panelists today. Among us and together, it is so reassuring and heartwarming to see so many people continuing to serve our neighbors who need us the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Next, we have Tanesha Grant, Director of Women's Services at CRT. The CRT Women's Empowerment Center is inspiring members to take charge of their destiny to live dynamic lives. They envision a community in which women, regardless of race, ethnicity, income level, or social status, are mentored and empowered to reach their full potential. CRT's Women's Services supports women by providing a supportive environment where they can thrive and feel empowered to improve their quality of life while dealing with life's challenges.
Hello, my name is Tanesha Grant. I'm the Director of Women's Services for Community Renewal Team's Women's Empowerment Center. At this center, we empower women to achieve self-actualization using their natural talents so that they are able to create legacies that are compassionate, respectful, and loving to themselves. Generally, when a female comes to our center, they're offered case management services and also have access to our behavioral health department as well as community services for basic needs. In addition, we have a child play center so that when the moms come to receive services, their child can be within the vicinity. During the pandemic, we've had to get creative with how we're providing services to the women that frequent the Women's Empowerment Center. For example, case management services that were once face-to-face or done during home visit are now being done on the telephone. In addition, we have new referrals that have been coming to us. And so when they come, they're given an intake. And during that intake, we assess what their needs are at the time. What I've seen in the past couple of weeks has been an uptake in the number of homeless women that have been coming to our center. Single moms that are raising, at a minimum, 2 children on unemployment income, at risk of homelessness as soon as the courts open back up. This pandemic hasn't made it any easier for them to change their situation. Going back to work isn't going to be an easy feat for them. So on top of trying to pay all of your bills, homeschool your children on an unemployment income, how do you stay positive in a situation like this when you don't know if you're going to be able to pay your rent this month? These are the kind of challenges that my families are dealing with at this time. They're able to offer advice and offer each other suggestions on how to handle certain situations. These are the kinds of support systems that are built, and these women are able to lean on one another for support. This money, if awarded, will go to help these women so that there's a lot less burden carried on their shoulders. and that they know that there are people out there that genuinely care about their well-being and want to see them to continue to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanesha. Next, we have Sara Wilson, Director of Communications and Development at Journey Home. Since 1995, Sara has committed her life to advocacy and justice within urban communities. Journey Home has spent more than a decade committed to ending homelessness in Connecticut's capital region. They apply sustainable solutions to the barriers that create cycles of homelessness. They are proud to be a lead agency within the Greater Hartford and Central Coordinated Access Network, developer of the Career Pathways Employment Program, and creator of Making a House a Home and a Hand Up. They serve 35 towns and cities and support a wide range of shelter and housing programs through resources, training, technical support, meeting facilitation, and on-the-ground work.
Hello, this is Sara Wilson from Journey Home, coming to you from my dining room in West Hartford. I first want to thank the Aurora Women's Foundation for inviting us to participate in this giving circle. We are honored and we are incredibly grateful for the support and for the opportunity to share a little bit of what we have been doing and what we are currently doing in the midst of this pandemic. As a little background, Journey Home was founded in 2007 with a vision to end homelessness in the Greater Hartford region. Since that time, we have worked collaboratively with a number of housing programs, housing providers, and shelters to make that happen. Our work really revolves around creative solutions to ending homelessness. And we have done our job in a lot of ways. We have focused on ending chronic homelessness, which is homelessness for folks who have been homeless a year or longer and have a disability. We've worked on eradicating veterans homelessness. We're currently focused on ending youth and family homelessness. And we continue to look at national best practices, and we continue to listen to our providers to find out what their needs are and what they feel what our work could do to help and support them. A lot of the work that we do revolves around training and data collection. We also provide support in the form of furniture donations. We have an employment program at Journey Home. And we also have a full-time staff member whose sole job is to build relationships with area landlords so we can ensure that we have good and affordable units ready for people to move into permanent housing. Our focus is really about making sure that homelessness is brief and that homelessness is rare and that it's non-reoccurring. So we don't advocate for people to spend a long time in shelter. What our hope is that people can move quickly from shelter and into a permanent home of their own. During this time, we've had a unique experience and a unique opportunity to engage the community in a much different way. Once the pandemic hit Connecticut and hit it hard, we kind of kicked into action. And while we don't typically do a lot of direct service work at Journey Home, we did take on a lot of direct service opportunities during this time to help support our housing programs. Since probably within the last 6 to 7 weeks, we have moved over 250 people from shelters, or for those who are living outside, into area hotels. And that's a monumental task that we helped take on, and we continue to manage this. We have over 50 women in these hotels right now, and we have over 20 families in these hotels. So what we are doing right now is we're looking really strategically about, once the contract ends at these hotels, how can we ensure that these folks will not move back into shelter or back to the street, but we want to get them into permanent housing situations. So your help and your support would allow us the opportunity to provide things like security deposit and rental assistance to those women and those children who are moving from the hotel into permanent housing, to ensure that they do not go back into the shelter. That is really our primary goal right now. Getting people out of the shelters, off the streets, did happen to keep them safe, but now our focus has shifted to moving them into a permanent housing solution. So with your support, we hope that we will be able to do that and focus our attention on making sure that these women and these girls and these children have a permanent place to live and to reside once this is all over. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Sara. Next, we have Princess Hyatt. She's the director of Horizons at the Ethel Walker School. She oversees the enrichment program, activities, operations, and fundraising initiatives for the program. Horizons at the Ethel Walker School is the nation's first all-girls Horizons program and serves underserved students who attend Hartford Public Schools. Through its year-round enrichment programming, Horizons creates the conditions, connections, and community that enable every girl who attends to gain the skills, confidence, and motivation to overcome the opportunity gap and realize her potential.
Hi, my name is Princess Hyatt, and I'm the director of the Horizons program at the Ethel Walker School. Here at the Horizons program, we are dedicated to serving underserved girls in the greater Hartford area from grades pre-K through 6. We offer an interactive, hands-on learning experience through our year-round enrichment program. Our mission is to create conditions, connections, and community that enable every girl who participates in our program to gain the skills, confidence, and motivation to overcome the opportunity gap, realize her true potential while combating summer learning loss. This global pandemic is forcing us to face a number of inequities. We are seeing how COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting women and communities of color. Horizons at the Ethel Walker School happens to be the nation's first all-girls Horizons program. We serve over 100 girls every summer, and these students are coming from the very communities that are being hit the hardest. COVID-19 is affecting the health of our families, their finances, our girls' educational experience, and their overall well-being. We have students who are having to choose between being a caretaker for their siblings and being a student while their parent works. We have parents who are essential workers who are being exposed to this health crisis every day. We have families who have lost their wages altogether, which only causes more uncertainty around food and shelter. Although the COVID-19 health crisis has greatly impacted the community that we serve, the health and safety of our students and families are a priority, and that's number one right now. We are engaging our students and families to meet their immediate needs. And as we receive feedback from our family, it's apparent that the COVID-19 health crisis has widened disparities in educational access and opportunity faced by our students. This has made our enrichment offerings in our program more important than ever. We are committed to being flexible and creative in delivering the support and programming that our students and our families in need at this very uncertain time. Though we plan to have summer offerings for our students, we anticipate our program looking very different in a number of areas. we are focused on ensuring that our students have devices, accessibility, and food support. If we were given additional funding by the Aurora Foundation for Women and Girls, we would use it to support food assistance and summer learning materials. We plan to distribute Horizons at Home packages to our families and our students that would include a grocery store gift card, school supplies, other learning materials, and other care necessities. By supporting Horizons at the Walker School right now, you are helping to ensure that we have the resources that we need to help our students understand that they don't have to try and conquer these challenges alone, and that women like you will have their back. Women like you will support them. Women like you hear them and are stepping up to the calling. And this will allow them to maintain focus on their academic and educational success. Today, we will make a difference in the lives of our young women. Today, we will conquer, and together, we will conquer. Thank you.
All right. And we're back. So I am looking to see if anyone put any questions in the chat. If not, maybe I'll throw one out there. So I think that what we're hearing from most of our presenters is this real survival level of need. That we're seeing food insecurity, we're seeing housing insecurity, we're seeing a rise in violence, and a lack of access really to education, right, for those without other kinds of supports. So I'm wondering if any of our speakers, you'd need to unmute yourselves first, I'll give you that warning, want to talk about what they see as what's coming next once we start to stabilize, right? We're already talking about reopening. What are going to be the next wave of needs?
I'll go first because I don't like going last.
Thanks, Princess.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Those were great presentations. It just speaks to the need that we all have in our organizations. One thing that Horizons focuses on through our enrichment program as a year-round kind of target is social emotional needs for our students. And so we are sure to have professional development for our teachers around instruction for social emotional needs. But I think this year, the trauma that we're going to see in our students and our families as well, I'm sure it's going to be at a high rate come September, and we still don't know what's happening in September. I actually spoke to a parent, and her daughter is in 2nd grade, and she said she keeps the news off. She doesn't speak about the crisis at all, and if she does, her daughter, has a breakdown. How do you explain to a young child why they can't go to school, why they can't be with their students? How come they can't see their teacher? And I think, social emotional needs are going to be a number one for our program. If it wasn't before, it is now. So I'll speak to that and then let others go ahead.
Oh, and Princess, we had one quick question. How many students? I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll let you take it.
So currently, we plan to have 115 students. We're at 108 right now, but every year we add on a grade level. So this year is pre-K through 6, and then next year will be pre-K through 7. And we usually add a new cohort of 15 students every year. So we continue to grow. That's another thing that we need to forecast where our students will be. But yeah, that's where we are now.
Thank you.
I'll go next.
Okay. Go ahead.
So what I think is going to continue to happen, I think a lot of the basic needs issues that the panelists have all discussed, I think will continue for a while, even after the reopening process. I think the other issue that we're going to be dealing with, especially for single parent households, for mothers, is childcare. If they're able to return back to work, we don't have a system that's necessarily set up to care for the number of children that are home being homeschooled at this point. So, because usually they would be in school, and so parents wouldn't have to worry about that as they work. So I think childcare is one of those issues that we really have to start thinking about and talking through for support for our families. Beyond the basic need, like food insecurity issues, being able to pay for rent depending on what, your employment status is. There's no guarantee immediately with reopening that a lot of people are going to have jobs immediately. So there's still going to be financial needs that families have that they're not going to be able to meet right away, especially if they're not able to find employment soon after things start to reopen. The other part of the equation that, we've seen in our Child First program and several of our programs at the Village is this issue of domestic violence that keeps surfacing for women in the programs, the isolation that a lot of individuals are experiencing, the level of child abuse that is happening, the level of, exploitation that is happening. And the sad part is that we don't see it now. There's not a lot of referrals coming in necessarily flagged, especially around the exploitation of our children. But the domestic violence piece has been surfacing, little by little. And so the need that is going to present itself once we start to reopen, once kids have access back to safe adults that they trust and start to disclose, will our service providers be able to meet the high demand and need of clients as they start to disclose the abuse that they've experienced in isolation. So I think we have a lot of work yet to come. I think there's a lot of healing that is going to happen for a lot of our families because the reality is that there's been so many loss of lives and people are grieving. There's so much fear and anxiety about one's own health and wellness and safety for oneself and family. None of those feelings are going to surface when we reopen. They might even heighten because now exposure is so much greater. So I think there's a lot of work to be done now, and there will be a lot of work for us to continue to do once reopening begins.
I just want to thank you for that. It's just a great insight. We have a lot of work in front of us. We haven't even seen what is coming our way. We know from research done in past crises that domestic violence victims are silent in the crisis and explode post-crisis. So we have needs to meet today. And I think when we look from June to December, we're going to see an enormous increase in the needs. And whether that is safety or housing or food, children in trauma, we are all going to see it. We are absolutely all going to see it. I can't imagine that I would ever in a million years be quoting the chairman of the Federal Reserve. But Powell has said it's incredibly important to put resources up front right now so that we can stem the tide. And I totally agree with him that that's what we need to do right now. But we should absolutely not expect that one infusion is going to take care of what is going to flood our gates going forward. This is unique. In 100 years, it's unique. Yeah. And we are going to have to respond in ways that we never imagined. And if I can just be optimistic for a minute, I've never seen such generosity and energy around an issue. I've been incredibly touched by it. I also think we are going to come out of this more humble. We are going to understand that we can't immediately solve. There's no instant gratification in these major problems. And also the Band-Aid has been ripped off the inequities and the disparities in the way our society works. And I believe, because I'm an eternal optimist, that we will address those issues in a much more full and wholesome and wonderful way going forward.
I would just like to echo something that has run through the comments of all of my fellow panelists. We at Malta are talking all the time about the surge. We're worried, as the whole world is, about a surge. Of course, about a surge in virus, in diagnoses of the virus. But for us, we're also worried about a surge in the number of unemployed and therefore uninsured people. It's impossible to look at the data, the unemployment data, and not recognize that many of those currently unemployed won't be getting those jobs back, or if they do, not get full-time jobs back, and all of that, they will be without health insurance. For many, they were people who were fully employed and fully insured until mid-March, mid-April. They may be diabetics or asthmatics. They may be used to taking blood pressure medication, and suddenly they will be cut off. And for sure, any of us who's ever had insurance cover our medications for chronic conditions know we could never afford them out of pocket. So at Malta, we're preparing for a surge in patients. We suspect that by the late third, fourth quarter, and certainly in 2021, the volume we already have will explode. And it's literally impossible to predict how many more patients we will have than we already were expecting, which was way more than last year. So for us, it is a dual bracing ourselves for more people, but recognizing that with those patients will come expenses we could never have imagined, particularly with
Michelle froze there.
This is Sara. I'm happy to go.
Great, Sara.
Wait to get Michelle back. Yeah. So I do as well echo all of the comments that were made because there is so much unknown right now. But
camera on. Sara, do you have your camera on?
My camera's on. Yeah.
Maybe I can't. Maybe it's just my screen. Anyway.
But I see me down in the bottom. I'm way down low.
Oh, there. You just came on my screen. There
okay.
Perfect.
Everybody see me? Yay. Hi. So there's just so many unknowns. And I guess that's where we all start, right? Is we don't know. But what we have found is that through the unknowns, we're finding a path, and the path has come through, and I think Mary Jane said this, through the generosity of others. It's really been tremendous and incredible to see the outpouring of love and support through all of this. What we do know, I mean, throughout the unknown, what we do know is that yesterday the Department of Housing offered a 1-month extension for those who are staying in the hotels, those who are experiencing homelessness staying in the hotels. So while it was supposed to expire on May 31st, we have until June 30th, which is a huge gift for us as we continue to search for permanent housing solutions. So that gives us another month of ensuring that we can make sure to not have return to shelter be the solution. But what we're anticipating is even after that June 30th date, a surge in homelessness is certainly on the horizon because of all of the issues that people spoke about, the job loss and the uncertainty of our economic future. So all of that is helping us prepare for this surge in what we think is a potential of increased homelessness in our community.
If I may say something, because I'm going to have to get off the call, but I just want to say that thank you. Thank you to all of the organizations present. Thank you to Jennifer and the Giving Circle. It just touches my heart, and it's very hard to talk without being emotional, because the love and support that's there in these hard times for all of these organization groups and individuals, and for the Giving Circle to be in the spot that it is, to be able to support and help all of these organizations, they are all, I listen, I take notes. They're all in critical, positions and could use every bit of help that certainly organizations such as the Giving Circle can provide. And even so, and you're absolutely correct. We just don't know how long. We don't know how great the need may even be after our state opens up. But to be able to start to repair and continue the support, to listen to the stories and the things that are happening are just they're things that are unimaginable, but they are real and they're happening. So, I feel fortunate to be a part of such an organization, and I am so glad that we can help, and certainly will continue the support. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Yvette, Cheryl, Mary Jane. I have all of the names, Tanesha, Sara, and Princess. Thank you for being present to share with us what you are seeing and talking to people about. So thank you, everybody. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
As a
bye.
steering committee member, you made this happen, Renee. So thank you.
My heart. Bye-bye.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in. We did have a question come in through email. It's Marie. Nice to see all of you guys. But Allison is wondering how your staff members are doing. She's saying the relationship between staff member and community member seem essential. So how are your staffs doing, and do they feel fully empowered to do what they can do?
I'm happy to take that question because we have both sides of the equation. Our little family has been hit by COVID-19. I have a young advocate who came down with all the symptoms, went to the hospital, wasn't tested because she was young and healthy. She has been treated for COVID-19, and I'm happy to say she's on the other side. Also, I'm happy to say that by the time she was diagnosed, she had long since been working remotely, so no one else was impacted. Sadly, forgive me, I have a dear staff member whose mother was in a nursing home, contracted COVID-19, and died last weekend. And I have one more staff member whose mother has COVID, but is doing very well. So it's impacted our family. I will also say, doing this work, and we went remote as quickly and as hard as we possibly could. Doing this work in isolation is toxic. And what I tasked all the advocates with was being at home, reaching out to every victim they were working with currently, and then to go back and call and reach out to every victim and survivor they've worked with for the last 6 months. There is nothing more important than being connected. If we know anything about domestic violence, it's that abusers love isolation. It gives them so much power. So my advocates are calling and calling and calling, and it's hard. When we have our Zoom staff meeting, I can hear some of the vulnerability. I can hear breaks. I can hear fragility. I know because of this statewide database that we are in compliance with that they're doing the work, they're doing remarkable work. But to assume that it is not taking a toll would be, silly. It's taking a toll on everyone. I'm so proud of the way they have done that work in isolation, and I'm so proud of those who have stayed on the front line, so that our 25 residents, women and children in the safe house, are cared for. They have food. They live in an impeccably clean environment. And then our court advocates who have witnessed a spike and an increase in arraignments that is just unbelievable, but they're there and they're doing it. So it's taken a toll. We're responding. And I'm profoundly grateful to all of those who are. But I think it would be true for all of us to say that this is a tough time. This is a tough time. We'll get through it, and we're going to rise above it, and we're going to meet the need. But this is a tough time.
I think at the village, we have from prevention to intervention services. So we have a lot of our staff that's working from home doing telehealth work, which is, you know, really been successful, and they've been able to engage with our families and the youth that we work with. And on the residential side, we have our frontline workers that's going in every day to provide care for the children. We've had staff that have tested positive for COVID, and we've, you know, dealt with that and worked through that as an organization. The village has been a tremendous organization around supporting staff who has gotten ill, providing, you know, reprieve for staff who needs it based on, you know, high risk needs. So I think the organization has really stepped up and is really supporting our employees. I think if we don't factor in that as a society, we're all struggling. And so that means that the workers are struggling just like the families are. They're dealing with their own anxiety. They're dealing with their own childcare. They're dealing with homeschooling their children, as well as trying to work and be of support to families. So sometimes they have double duty, right? They have to worry about their families, but they also have to worry about all these other families, and not just one other family, but multiple families. So there's definitely a lot of stress there. So as an organization, we think about, you know, what are self-care strategies? What supports can we offer? What information and literature is out there that can support not only our families, but also our staff? We have a COVID-19 resource link on our website, and there's a ton of information and resources there to help anyone who's struggling with issues related to this. So I think, you know, the employees that are on the front line, the employees who are still providing care, they're dealing with, you know, vicarious trauma issues, they're dealing with burnout issues, they're dealing with their own mental health issues and their own family issues, and carrying also the burden of others. So we really have to be mindful. And I think one of the things I said recently to someone, we talk a lot about healthcare providers, and we focus on nurses and doctors and some of the medical, physical health providers, and we don't often enough talk about the staff that are doing mental health work and the behavioral health side of this, and how much they hear and experience every day because of this crisis, and how it's compounded people's lives and created complex trauma for so many families, and they have to be a vessel to receive that kind of content and information. And we don't talk enough about them and the impact that this crisis is having on them. So we're mindful of that in the organization and constantly trying to balance that out for our staff.
Say the same thing at CRT, just trying to find a right balance for our clinicians that are working with our participants in our programs. We haven't closed. We've still been taking individuals that are in crisis and doing intakes with them and getting them connected with the clinicians so that they can still have their needs met. And we meet as a team weekly to talk about those issues that may come up, or stuff that may be stumping the clinician, so that they understand that there is some support from their colleagues and from their supervisors. I want to say that the vice president of our behavioral health department has been very supportive and transparent about everything that's going on with the agency, and with regards of when folks will be returning to work, and how we're caring for our participants that are in our programs. And she's really taken the lead and has been very steadfast in making sure that we all are okay, and that if there's a need that needs to be met for her staff, that it's being met. And in addition, just playing to our strengths. So there were things that we didn't realize that we were capable of as a staff of doing, and now, okay, we know that we can go to this person if we're having a problem with Zoom, or if we're having a problem with DoxyMe, we know which staff member to be able to go to be able to assist with that. If there's a resource that we can't find, or there's a connection at another agency that can be able to provide a resource, we use that staff person to be able to connect with that person so that we can be able to make sure that our participants' needs are being met. So we're leaning on our staff to utilize those strengths that they necessarily don't to when they're in the office, because there hasn't really been an opportunity to do so. And so I just want to say that her name is Heidi. I'm not sure if any of you know her, but she's just been really great. Lena has been really great in making sure that the staff are taken care of and that we're taking care of our participants, because if your staff is great, right, the participants are going to be great as well. So yeah.
I have to say, I really love that. And it's a great point. There are so many of our staffs who are stepping up in ways that we never expected. You know, they are, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh no, not a problem. I'll get you that. Oh, I know this person. I know that person. And so, you know, there are silver linings. And I try very hard for at least some part of every day, and really most of every day, to hold on to those silver linings, because we're getting this work done. We're discovering new talents and new ways of doing it. I'm incredibly grateful for the humor and grace and generosity of staff. But it's just a great point, because all kinds of new talents are bubbling to the surface that we might not have otherwise found. So there are silver linings in every cloud.
That's a great point, Mary. I think through all of this, I'm learning to connect more, to build partnerships, to lean in on others who can support my work, because we are all going through this together. Our teachers have already started to teach online, so this whole virtual world isn't something new to them. So they've been really good with, you know, whatever you need, let's do it. We started a homework assistance helpline for our spring programming, and they're ready for the summer. I just need to keep reminding myself to take care of myself while I'm trying to take care of my family. So it's just great how many of us are connecting with each other and doing all that we can for each other.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any more questions or any final thoughts they'd like to share? I want to let everyone just know procedurally what'll happen next. So all of we're so grateful. We had almost 70 people on this call, which I just think is amazing. I'm so like, it just fills me up, right? Like this is what will happen. Women will come together and we'll find solutions and we'll build a new world. That's right. Like that's the idea that keeps me going. So I'll leave some time for final thoughts, but what will happen next is we'll reach out to all you amazingly generous folks who have donated, and we'll have a follow-up meeting on Tuesday, June 2nd, where we'll talk about a recommendation to the board to disperse the funds from the Giving Circle, and then we'll make that recommendation to the June 8th board meeting the following week. Thank you all so much again. You'll get information about that meeting sent to you from email, but I saw that Sara had her hand up. Did she have a last comment to make? Maybe
that was
Sara?
A mistake. That was a mistake.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm having technology issues.
Really?
5 minutes before this started, my microphone wasn't working, and Marie and I were like, oh, but it magically, I don't know, I told my head a different way. I don't know, ladies. I think kudos to us. Everybody showed up.
That's right.
Everybody looks great. I'm very jealous of Karen on her porch. Yes, just thank you all so much. It really, I just feel like I'm filled up today. Like I can keep going. That we all can. And what an amazing community. Thanks so much.
Thank you
so much.
So
Thanks for
you. Thank all of you.
Be well.
And you also.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.